Right, this is probably going to sound a little bit like a rant, but also it's about maybe I'm getting a little old. I've driven a few new cars, Golf, a couple of other high cars just recently, in the last 12 months or so. One thing I have noticed, and I know why, it's all end cap safety restings, the A pillars and the B pillars and the C pillars kind of gaining in size, and huge bloody blind spots. The Vauxhall Astra I drove last year was absolutely awful. A, it was gutless, which didn't help, and B, it was just, I don't know, the A pillar was massive, a huge blind spot at the front. Yes, okay, it's kind of funky having quarter windows and all that kind of stuff on an average car, but just horrible. And whenever I overtake, I look over my shoulder to look what's behind me to like I've changed lanes. Just, I had no guarantee that I could actually see what I was doing. It really didn't inspire much confidence. When I drove my GT40 and my Ultima, I had maybe a little bit less respect for the road than I have now, my slightly 1 decade more years, should we say. So this is all teeing down to I really want some overtaking vision and some vision basically through the rear quarter. So I can see and look over my shoulder and be 100% careful. If I pull in or pull out of traffic, there's not somebody sitting in my blind spot. I don't want to have a second set of mirrors like I did on the GT40. It just didn't look right. But it helped, but it wasn't very brilliant. So, original Lexan window was going to be kind of an angle like here. So now I think I'm going to come down and try to follow the door and have a viewing area here in either side, almost making it, instead of one piece window, almost making it a 2 or a 3 or a 4 piece window. Having something about it. Obviously this shape here, this kind of dip here and the bump where the original scoop was, is going, I'm no longer going to have a scoop mounted on the back. In fact, this body line here that mimics the tub is going to stay exactly where it is. I'm not going to move it at all. Blend it from there on, make it more sympathetic to the angle of the roof, yes. Obviously rear is still going to be chopped in half down here and in 2 pieces. A couple of cars have done the 2 now and it looks pretty good, so I've managed to get the rigidity on the back. So, but either way around, I'm going to put windows to the side. Now that has pushed me really now to realise that having a gill here raised away from it, sort of come down and around to drag air into the engine bay, instead of having a roof scoop. Sort of similar to a Mark II GT40, I suppose. The 7-litre cars had the 2 gills at the side. One's normally down the bottom anyway, the second one's at the top. I've gone away from that because I really want the vision. And I thought, well, really I want the car to be as safe as possible, and this is what I want. So basically that's going to have to be basically a visible window now. So the side gills have gone. I've gone back to getting the induction basically from the roof. I could take it from the sides, but I really want to put it from the roof, from other than just the sides, so I can leave the sides for whatever other form of cooling we need to. AC's at the front as well, obviously, so if somebody wanted to put radiators at the back instead of them at the front, leave options open. So what this has meant is I've had to rethink the roof scoop again, and don't laugh, but yes, it's a bit of 3-inch PVC gutter pipe at the moment. No, I'm not going to run 90-degree end on and try and suck the world dry of water via a gutter tube. This is just for temporary, just looking and seeing where my biggest obstructions are in the way of actually having an overtake, so I can lean over my shoulder like I can in the other car and see my blind spot behind the window, because obviously normally your window will finish here for the door and you can't see jack behind it there unless you look in the rearview mirror, and there's always going to be a blind spot somewhere. So either way, I want to be able to look, my head plonked here, I want to be able to look diagonally back there and see basically through the rear clip and see the a blind spot. Mirrors parked out here, you do get a pretty good view of what's behind you as such, so I'm not too fussed about that. Even if I have the mirrors out here, I can have them more pointing inboard than outboard, so that's not so much of a problem. But what it does do, it means I want to open up the area behind the seat here. Now literally I'm looking through and past behind the seat, so I'm looking basically between the shoulders at the head of the guy and looking back there. All you see with the bar we've presently got here, which meets at the corner point here and goes to the centre and back down again. Obviously originally I was going to take this roll cage down and put the roof scoop above it. Well, now I'm thinking to try and flip that up a bit, leave this where it is, leave the height where it is. I'm going to redo it all anyway, but instead of having the bars come to the centre, I'm going to have a double triangle. So coming up to here, and instead of going to the middle, I'll come to here, basically where the two diagonal tubes come from the back. So I'll come from here to there, back down to there, back down. You can see the very professional duct tape simulation here. But what it does do is it gets rid of this tube here and lifts it out of the way so I get a better viewing angle. Well, and from there looks a little better. So now you can see the original bars, as we finger, there you go. Original bars that came up to the centre and back down again, whereas now we're going to come up at a steeper angle to here, down, up and down again. This does two things. A, that bar moves up, I get more of a viewing angle there, less obstructed by the chassis. More area for me to look past. You know, I'm looking through behind that tube and through there. So that works. What it also does then is it puts a nice V in the centre. So I've got a triangular area here, whereas before I didn't have an unobstructive just underneath the chassis. I didn't have an unobstructive area, so I had to, if what originally wanted to put the scoop from the top and force the air inside the cabin down into there and have like a lowered roof section. You see the inside of a McLaren F1, you'll see the roof duct actually comes behind the driver. Obviously the driver is set further forward in the McLaren because obviously sat in the middle, but either around you've got room to put the air scoop underneath the chassis. It was meant a separate piece of bodywork attached to the top of the roof that would then, when you put the body on, will flip it from the inside, but that's not a problem. So basically, instead of running the, I'll try not to put your finger in front of the camera, Clive, we can run 2-inch through 3-inch tubes underneath here. So I have a separate piece that bolts in for the inside, seals there that the air will now travel down. You're saying, well, I'm losing head height there. Well, actually not, because your head's on the outside of these tubes here. You also say, oh, I might be using vision because you're going to go into the corner, Clive. Well, actually you're not, because you sit in it, you turn your head around, you naturally lean forward a little bit, you do that. And that vision there, through that point, is actually still unobstructed. So, I've checked it out, I've sat in the car, I've looked at it. So basically, that part's obstructed anyway. So as far as doing a window in the rear bulkhead itself, which is pretty much going to follow that rear body line, so pretty much you'd probably have a return lip on the body here, which is about 4 or 5 inches at the moment for moulding, but I'll probably have a 2-inch return lip, and then all of that will be a viewable window. So I can see through there and then through out either side. The view in the normal traditional rear view mirror through the centre of the car is going to be limited. That's just what I can do about it. You can look to the left and right of it. I can put a rear view mirror over there that's shining basically back over my shoulder. So as I look from the driver's side up to the mirror, it's basically reflecting straight back past my shoulder down there. That's one possibility, but I'll always be looking over my shoulder the other way. Anyway, and especially if you're overtaking, you tend to look out that way and look back. So in the middle will be, it looks like we're going back to the induction again. So we'll still have the roof scoop. The scoop will be still in the centre. Still have the reduction in the roof where that is, but that reduction will smooth out to nothing. I can still run an individual piece and still keep the roof. I had the roof indent that I have at the moment. Just run an individual piece, will sit into it, but basically it'll finish early. Instead of going all the way to the back, it'll finish early, and then I'll have a separate 2 tubes, 2 3-inch tubes that go down there that'll sit into it. So I run probably twin 75mm throttle bodies, so it's going to be plenty enough. So it looks like now the induction is going to sit in the centre again, but I'll try and keep it to a minimum on the width, keep everything close to centre, and then run stuff left and right. So we'll see. I might even make my own, actually that's not a bad idea, I could make my own throttle body, my own single throttle body here and come into it. Actually, no, that's not a bad idea at all. Another one for the plans. So that's the idea anyway. So the gills that were going to go here and the bodywork, now gone. We're going to keep this open for vision. Vision directly behind us, not much more an issue because the rear view mirrors do get a reasonable amount of vision. What's directly behind you, but what's directly behind you generally don't care too much about. It's when they're offset to the side of you in theoretical blind spots that you really want to see them more than anything else. So basically, once we remake this, we're going to redo these two tubes and have a double triangle and then run the roof into here. So that's the idea on the roof anyway. So a little bit of rant about modern cars, another development idea to put into the bodywork itself. I'm concentrating on the chassis at the moment. I've kind of dropped the bodywork for the moment. I need to get some inspiration back in. So get the rear suspension in, get the shock absorbers on, get the wheels and tyres and the damn thing, get it rolling, steering rack, front suspension on, sit the damn thing on the floor at ground height, and then start getting back into the body again. Still going to run my full length diffusers all the way from the back, all the way to the front bulkhead. That's sort of the rear bulkhead. That's going to be done. Got some funky ideas of how to actually make those two tunnels join into other parts of the diffuser. So we've got basically a multi-level diffuser all the way along. I'm not going to run the kind of old school thing at the back now. I'm going to morph that out slightly, make it look a little bit more modern. Still do like the front. More and more I look at this now with that more of a clean edge to that particular body that makes it kind of an almost statement that way. I like that. I don't want to raise the damn thing up. John Olson's car looks pretty good now, I must admit, but I don't want to raise it up and widen the body out any more than it is. I want to try and keep the damn thing as small and as light, as nimble as it is without having to add extra bodywork and add, a little bit of more weight. I must admit, Johnny's done a fantastic job with that particular car. So it's an inspiration for me, if nothing else, to get on with stuff. I'm still thinking of a piece to go across the front here. Basically this section here is going to come back or raised up. So where you have a radiator line here, it'll actually be a complete thing across, but the nose will dive into that and continue from the back there, but it would be kind of a lifted portion up all the way across. But instead of being all the way across to just here, it'll actually come all the way from here to there. It'll be like a second lip, and then that body, that part itself there, we're going to make the underneath of that curve down and round and up again, and make that part theoretically a little bit of a wing, lower the radiator angle down a little bit, and then I'm going to put a movable blade in front of the radiator, which can either take less or more air. So basically, if you imagine this, is like that, we'd either take less air into the radiator but throw more air onto the top here, or we can take more air into the radiator, and so at low speed, we can have this up like that, and pretty much the air can be going into it. The faster the speeds we go, the less air we need in the radiator, so I can move this down further. We don't need as much air going into it. As long as we've got a large exit, we're still going to get the flow through it. But the air that'll go over the top of this port now should create a wing effect on the underneath. And obviously it's not so much the air at the top, it's going pretty straight. It's the accelerating air that has to go round and take a longer distance that's going to hopefully create a little bit more downforce. And if you say, well, yes, that's there, Clive, but you haven't got much distance between there and the top, then you're not creating downforce because you're only pushing from the top of there. Well, actually, you're accelerating air. you are, because as long as it meets at the other side, that's fine. Just think of a bi and a triplane. They have multiple wings set virtually parallel to each other at different heights. So anyway, my phone's telling me I haven't got much storage space left. Righty-ho.